You want the cost per individual?
Do you have that?
I do not have that with me today, sir. I can get that for you.
Well, I do have a number. Do you know how much it costs to hold an immigrant in ICE detention facility in the United States? Do you have that number?
Now, are you talking per day? I believe the last estimate that I got was $142 a day, around in that approximately, per day?
Yeah, but it's close to what I'm understanding. I understand it's $165 per day, so it's in the range. I'm still waiting for detailed financial information from this administration from my time to Guantanamo Bay. In fact, we a letter with Ranking Member, or Chairman Paul and the Ranking Member together, we wanted more information on the cost there. When I was there, the 2-month cost estimate for operations was $43 million when we were down there talking.
Senator Gary Peters pressed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on why Congress has not been formally notified of sweeping internal changes at the Department of Homeland Security, changes that federal law explicitly requires lawmakers to be told about in advance. If you want reporting that breaks down what moments like this actually mean and why they matter, make sure you subscribe so you stay informed.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you again, Secretary Noem, for being here. I just want to follow up briefly with Chairman Paul's questions about the cost of the wall, the billions of dollars that are going to be put forward. We do have to have accurate numbers so that we could look at that for funding it. But I would hope you also take a look at all of the cost of a wall, because there are a lot of other secondary kinds of defenses you have to put forward. I was at the wall. I've been with security folks. They tell me that a lot of the cartels have designed very sophisticated technologies to get over the wall. They're called ladders and they're called ropes. So a wall doesn't really do the job if there's not a lot of other background technologies there. So you just can't put out a cost for the wall. That's money that's not going to be as effective without everything else. So let's have a discussion about that. For the first time in U.S. history, the federal government, at the direction of President Trump, is moving immigrants apprehended and detained in the United States on civil immigration charges to Naval Station at Guantanamo Bay, which I know you're very familiar with. In March, I traveled to Guantanamo Bay with several colleagues to have a firsthand examination of the detention operations underway. And I certainly have serious concerns about the cost involved there. To date, can you tell us the total cost for detaining individuals at Guantanamo Bay?
You want the cost per individual?
Do you have that?
I do not have that with me today, sir. I can get that for you.
Well, I do have a number. Do you know how much it costs to hold an immigrant in ICE detention facility in the United States? Do you have that number?
Now, are you talking per day? I believe the last estimate that I got was $142 a day, around in that approximately, per day?
Yeah, but it's close to what I'm understanding. I understand it's $165 per day, so it's in the range. I'm still waiting for detailed financial information from this administration from my time to Guantanamo Bay. In fact, we a letter with Ranking Member, or Chairman Paul and the Ranking Member together, we wanted more information on the cost there. When I was there, the 2-month cost estimate for operations was $43 million when we were down there talking to the officials there. And that does not include transportation to and from the island. We find that people are sent to the island and then they're sent back to the United States again before they're sent out. I'm not sure why we have all those costs. We have plenty of ICE facilities to keep them here. Why you have to send them there and back. And on the day that I visited, there were 87 people in custody. And my understanding is that's a pretty normal number. At that time, at least. So my back of the napkin calculation, we're waiting for your numbers, is that it's costing about $100,000 a day to keep someone at Guantanamo Bay. Man, this is like ripe for Doge. Why is Doge not down there? We're spending $100,000 a day to keep someone at Guantanamo, and we fly them down there, we keep them there a while, then we fly them back to the United States. Or we could keep them here for $165 a day. I think that's kind of outrageous. So, I'm concerned by the staggering cost of this, and I would hope, Secretary, you could commit providing this committee a detailed breakdown of the total cost of that operation there. There were just a sea of empty beds. There was all sorts of security folks and nobody in those beds, which is why it's so expensive. So Chairman Paul will probably use this on his Festivus report later, I'm sure, of outrageous government spending, and I'll look forward to seeing that. Secretary Noem, are you familiar with Section 872 of the Homeland Security Act of 2002?
It sounds familiar, sir. You'll have to remind me the topic. Yes.
Well, Section 872 requires you, as Secretary, to provide a 60-day notice to Congress
Yes.
of any creation, deletion, consolidation, or alteration of organizations within the department that are not required in statute, which must include an explanation for the rationale behind any charges. It also prohibits you from making any changes to offices in the status. So my question for you is, why have you not provided notice to Congress of the changes you are making at the department? And will you be doing so in the near future? And will you include intended reduction in forces in that? For example, you've already terminated virtually the whole Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Office staff without any communication to Congress about your intent. And the only letter yesterday claiming all of the statutory responsibilities would be met, you sent a letter, but it conflicts certainly with the whistleblower disclosure that I received last week. So please explain to the committee why you are not following this law.
Well, Senator, we are following that law. Those offices that you referenced are still open and functioning and providing their duties as required, but they have been right-sized. Many times the Office of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, or the Ombudsman Office, which you and I visited about before, had grown quite expansive. They were used as a political tool, suing and attacking each other and censoring individuals and not doing the job for which they were created. So we've right-sized them, put them back on mission, and if there would be an instance to where notification is required, I certainly will follow that.
Time has expired. Senator Moreno.
Thank you again.
Peters began by returning to an issue that has dominated immigration debates for years, the cost of border wall construction. He acknowledged the need for accurate funding estimates, but warned that focusing solely on the price tag of the wall itself ignores the broader reality. A wall, he said, is only effective when paired with extensive secondary security measures, technology, staffing, and surveillance. Without those layers, Peters noted, even basic tools like ladders and ropes can defeat billions of dollars in construction. That concern over cost effectiveness set the stage for a much deeper issue. For the first time in U.S. history, immigrants detained on civil immigration charges inside the United States are being transferred to the naval base at Guantanamo Bay. Peters, who traveled to the base earlier this year with other lawmakers, said what he saw raised serious financial and logistical red flags. When Peters asked Secretary Noem for the total cost of detaining migrants at Guantanamo, she said she did not have the figures available. Peters then compared those unknown costs to ICE detention facilities inside the United States, where holding an individual costs roughly between $150 and $165 per day. What lawmakers were told at Guantanamo, Peters explained, was that just 2 months of operations there carried an estimated cost of $43 million, and that figure did not include transportation. Detainees are flown to the island, held for a period of time, then often flown back to the United States before being deported, a process Peters called inefficient and unnecessary given the availability of ICE facilities on the mainland. On the day Peters visited, only 87 people were in custody, with large sections of the facility sitting empty. Based on those numbers, Peters estimated it could be costing taxpayers close to $100,000 per detainee per day, a figure he called outrageous. He questioned why the administration would choose such an expensive approach when less costly alternatives already exist. Peters asked Secretary Noem to commit to providing Congress with a detailed cost breakdown of the Guantanamo operation. That information, he noted, has still not been delivered, despite formal requests from both parties. Then the focus shifted from money to law. Peters asked Noem if she was familiar with Section 872 of the Homeland Security Act of 2002. When she said it sounded familiar, Peters explained its requirements. The law mandates that the DHS secretary provide provide Congress with at least 60 days' notice before creating, eliminating, consolidating, or altering departmental offices that are not required by statute. It also requires an explanation for those changes and prohibits certain actions without congressional review. Peters accused the department of violating that law. He pointed specifically to the near-total termination of staff within the Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, changes that were made without advance notice to Congress. Peters said the only communication lawmakers received was a letter sent the day before the hearing, a letter he said directly conflicted with whistleblower disclosures his office had received. His question was direct: why has Congress not been notified as required by law, and will the administration comply going forward, including disclosing planned reductions in force? Secretary Noem responded by insisting the department is following the law. She said the offices in question remain open and operational, though significantly reduced in size. Noem described the changes as right-sizing, arguing that some offices had become overly expansive and politically weaponized rather than focused on their statutory missions. She said if a situation arises that legally requires notification, she would follow that process. But for Peters, that answer appeared insufficient. The exchange underscored a broader concern that goes beyond one department or one secretary, whether executive agencies can restructure themselves without meaningful oversight from Congress, even when the law says otherwise. This hearing was not just about walls or detention facilities. It was about who decides how power is exercised inside federal agencies and whether Congress is being cut out of decisions it is legally entitled to oversee. If you want continued coverage that explains how government decisions affect accountability, taxpayer dollars, and civil liberties, be sure to subscribe so you do not miss future reporting.